Hello, AEW audience. My name is Christian with Duality of Wrestling. Thanks so much, as always, for checking out the podcast and the channel. We appreciate you being here. We got Dynamite coming at us tomorrow night from Las Vegas, the same site that Collision will be taped at. And there's a lot already announced for the card. We got 4 big matches that have a lot of implications going forward. And then we've got 3 more Continental Cup matches on Collision itself to discuss, plus the 2 that are taking place on Dynamite. But let's start off by recapping some of the Continental Cup matches that took place on Collision that got us where we are. Hopefully you've had a chance to check out my Continental Cup preview. That'll take us all the way up to All in London, where the finals will be held for the current champion Jon Moxley's Continental Championship. The advancers so far, we had Claudio Castagnoli, advancing in the first round. He'll move on. We also had Eddie Kingston in Collision's main event moving on over Jake Doyle. And then we finally had Orange Cassidy defeating Matt Sydal to move on as well. So those are your 3 that have advanced so far. You've got Claudio, you've got Orange Cassidy, and you've got Eddie Kingston. Of those 3, I think Eddie Kingston is the only one who can really make some significant noise in this tournament moving forward. But that's just my thought process going forward. So that makes it a perfectly good place for us to start talking about the Las Vegas Dynamite tomorrow night, talking about the 2 Continental Cup matches that we have on tap for that show. In the first round, we've got Jungle Jack Perry taking on current Continental Championship holder Jon Moxley of the Death Riders. And I've had some interesting conversations with people of late about this. I've had some people think that Jack Perry could sneak in here and maybe take an upset and knock Jon Moxley out, thus guaranteeing us a new champion. I could see there being some validity in that, especially if you want to maybe trigger something of a storyline where the Death Riders might lose faith in Moxley, given the fact that Claudio has advanced and Mox might not. But we kind of already did that a little bit during last year's Continental Championship or Continental Classic tournament. I don't think we're going to see the same thing happen this year. At least if we do get a storyline like that, it's not going to be right now. Mox has been excellent in his role here. I don't see there being a way that Moxley doesn't walk into Wembley as the Continental Champion. So I think Mox is almost a lock for the finals here. So unfortunately, that makes it that Jack Perry is unlikely to win this match, and he is likely to get bounced in the first round. So my pick here is Jon Moxley goes over what will be a very competitive match that hopefully showcases Jack Perry a good bit more, but I think in the end, Jon Moxley retains his championship and moves on to round 2. Then we've got our other Continental Cup first round matchup for Dynamite. We're going to see the Bang Bang Gang's Jay White take on the Dog's David Finlay in sort of a clash of leaders of both factions. And obviously this has been a feud that's been going on since Jay White's return. Jay White has made this very personal with David Finlay, bringing in a lot of their history from Japan, a lot of shillelagh shots traded back and forth. Frankly, this has been a little bit underwhelming for Jay White. And honestly, I don't think it's really done a great deal for David Finlay either. I don't feel much differently about Finlay than I did prior to Jay White's return. And honestly, I don't feel like Jay White is any more important or interesting or intriguing than he was when he first came back as well. So I actually really hope this puts a bookend nicely on this dog slash Death Rider slash Bang Bang Gang feud that currently has Jay White and David Finlay locked in its clutches. I'm not sure that it will. I think we're probably going to get a ridiculous multi-man match at All In to sort of bring all of these guys onto the card. Assuming Jay White doesn't make it to the finals himself, I do think there is a possibility of that. I'd put Eddie Kingston, Kyle O'Reilly, and Nigel McGuinness as potential other likely competitors who could easily reach that finals against Mox. Jay White is one of those 4. I do think he has the possibility to do it. So I don't think David Finlay has that chance. So I easily think Jay White wins here, unless we see something like a double disqualification that would, or a count out or a no contest, something that would eliminate both competitors and allow this feud to go on to All In, where we can get the aforementioned multi-man, likely street fight-ish kind of match. So if this is a match with a clean result, I am certainly picking Jay White. But I don't want to discount the possibility that both men could get eliminated here. Now, we have 2 other matches that have been announced for Dynamite so far, and both are very, very interesting, although I think both are pretty well telegraphed in terms of who's going to win. We have, the first of is Kevin Knight will defend his TNT Championship against Chris Jericho. This comes on the heels after Collision, where Darby Allin challenged Kevin Knight to a Falls Count Anywhere match for Knight's TNT Championship. Knight deferred, basically said, maybe I'll give you an answer later, but basically blamed his loss in the trios match to Darby Allin last week on Chris Jericho, namely Jericho hitting that Judas effect while Knight was trying to hit the Van Terminator. No, I will still not call it the coast to coast. I don't care how much AEW's commentators want me to. It's not that. It's the Van Terminator. I cannot have my mind changed. But Jericho's Judas effect is what cost Knight the win there. It allowed Darby Allin to hit the coffin drop to get the win. Knight has then pivoted from Allin to Jericho, which is where we are getting this TNT Championship match. I actually like in Collision that Kevin Knight brought up Jericho's history with the TNT and Turner family of networks, noting that Jericho actually was a television champion in the past. I will be the first to say I have a very soft spot in my heart for the previous television championship. I think that's a great way to differentiate a title from others. I have a few ideas for that maybe I'll drop on us at some point, but I do like that they brought in that history with Jericho. I think this is a great way to utilize Jericho in this role as it is a good springboard to get Kevin Knight some more momentum heading into All In as the TNT champion, given that he is coming off both a loss in that trios match last week and as well as the loss to Kenny Omega at Redemption. So we need to, heat up Kevin Knight a little bit more. I think this is a good way to do it, to defend against Jericho, maybe to try and lay him out a bit more after the match, bring Darby Allin out, and that leans us a bit more towards the Falls Count Anywhere match. And I will say, I've been talking a lot of game for several weeks now that I see this being a coffin match at All In. I'm going to change my tune a little bit just based on the conversation that was had on Collision about the Falls Count Anywhere match. I actually think that since they brought up that particular stipulation and didn't just, not say anything about a stipulation of any kind, it makes me think that they're going to save the coffin match for the September pay-per-view, which is All Out in Chicago, and maybe do the Falls Count Anywhere match here first at All in London. So that's where I think we go with this. I think we get Kevin Knight retaining here against Jericho on Dynamite. We get a little bit more furthering to get us to the Falls Count Anywhere match in London, and then we eventually build to a coffin match at All Out in Chicago. That's where I think that progresses. Speaking of feuds that have a pretty linear progression, feels like that's lined up, we have the gauntlet match qualifier for the number 2 spot. Remember last week on Dynamite, Andrade El Idolo was victorious in his qualifying match, so he will have the number 1 spot in the Casino Gauntlet. Obviously, MJF jumped him after that match with his big Burberry belt and reclaimed his Dynamite Diamond ring and bloodied Andrade with that. That has set us up for this match where MJF will highlight the qualifier, taking on Speedball Mike Bailey and Nick Wayne, who both threw their hats into the ring on Collision. I don't think there's any way either of those two men win this match. I think it is very, very obvious that this match is going to be a vehicle to get us to Andrade versus MJF to start off the Casino Gauntlet match. Speedball obviously has the most credibility of the other two competitors over Nick Wayne. Nick Wayne has been a former trios champion, but he does not have the grav as has Speedball, but Speedball has been much more prominently booked specifically on AEW television, where Nick Wayne has been primarily working in Ring of Honor. Nick Wayne is even scheduled right now to face Ring of Honor World Champion Bandito for that title at Death Before Dishonor. So I don't think you're going to put him in a position to win this match when he's already focused on the ROH World title. That brings us to Speedball and MJF. I think MJF is the obvious pick here. Him and Andrade are going to start off the All-In Gauntlet. I stand by my pick that I don't think that MJF is going to win that match, nor do I think Andrade wins that match. I think both of them get so invested in beating on each other that they're going to take their focus away from the championship opportunity and really just instead be laser focused on giving out as much punishment to each other as possible. That would likely set us up for either just a straight singles match or a gimmick match at All Out in Chicago. But that means we're going to have a different number 1 contender likely coming out of that Casino Gauntlet match. I don't think it'll be either MJF or Andrade, but I do think Andrade is the winner in this match, and that's what we see happen. That's all that's been announced for Dynamite so far, so I'm going to quickly preview the rest of the first round matches that are going to be happening on Collision this week for the Continental Cup. We've got Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly taking each other on in a battle of the conglomeration. I think Kyle O'Reilly is the one that makes the most sense here. He has the most history with Jon Moxley, and that would be a feud that would make sense to reignite if we were to move O'Reilly towards the finals, or even towards a fun second round matchup with Moxley, or however else we want to pair people off. So I think Kyle O'Reilly is the one that makes the most sense to win this match. O'Reilly's also had the most high-profile singles wins of these two competitors, at least of late. Roddy Strong does have a history as the international champion, whereas Kyle doesn't. But again, I'm going based off of recent booking prominence, and recent booking prominence is that Kyle has mattered more than Roddy, so I'm giving the edge to Kyle here. Pairing that with his history with Mox, it feels like a no-brainer that Kyle O'Reilly goes over. Does this mean this might be where we start to see some fissures form in the conglomeration? Maybe. I hope so. I'd love to see either or both of these guys get out of the conglomeration shadow. I don't think it suits their strengths, but we'll see how that goes. Now, in a more technical match that should be very, very interesting and fun from a scientific standpoint, we're going to get the Ops Katsuyori Shibata taking on normal commentary team member, but also technical wizard Nigel McGuinness. And I don't think there's any way Nigel McGuinness doesn't go over here. All In is in London. Nigel McGuinness is from the UK. Nigel is one of my 3 picks to potentially make it to the finals. Shibata is in with the Ops, who have not really been given much TV time of late. They're kind of the afterthought faction, especially with Samoa Joe off doing Hollywood shit right now. I don't think there's any reason to put Shibata over Nigel going into Wembley. So to me, this is a no-brainer that Nigel McGuinness is going to get the Duke here over Shibata. And then finally, we have another intra-faction match. The Don Callis family explodes when Brian Cage will take on CMLL World Champion Hechicero. Yo soy. This one is a little bit tougher to put my finger on who can win. Either man, I think, would be deserving. I will say I think Brian Cage has been the more impressive of the two competitors of late. He's been booked a little bit more prominently. He's had a great singles match, for example, against Darby Allin a few weeks ago, where he really showed out. And I always think Cage has been very criminally underrated. He just looked more as just a body guy, where I think Cage is very good in the ring, especially for somebody with his particular build. His charisma might not be there the same way others is, but I think Cage, from a look standpoint, is better than just the package he puts out on TV. I think his in-ring quality is very, very solid, again, for somebody of his physique. But that's not to discount Hechicero. Hechicero, as I mentioned, is the CMLL World Champion. That means a good bit considering AEW's partnership with CMLL, with coming off of Grand Slam Mexico. He was booked well there. He also, and this is going to sound very, inside baseball, but there is something to be said for the fact that Hechicero did get a new entrance theme recently and a little bit of a new presentation within the Don Callis family. He was kind of a little bit of an afterthought within the family, and he's been sort of moved back up into prominence of late. So I think there could be some room for Hechicero to be somebody who emerges victorious here. I'm not super confident in what will happen here. And I will say, if we get the situation on Dynamite with Jay White and David Finlay, where they both do get themselves no contest or disqualified or in some way removed from this tournament, this would be a situation where I could also see both men removed from the tournament. I don't see either of them advancing past the next round. They to me aren't players to make the finals. And if we have an odd number based on what could happen with Jay White and David Finlay left in terms of participants remaining in the Continental Cup, I could see that odd number being converted back to an even number and us flipping the format around a little bit by eliminating both Cage and Hechicero. So I think my prediction for that match is going to be very TBD based on what happens on Dynamite. If there's a clean winner, and there is, and it's Jay White, I'm still very loath to pick a winner here. I truly don't know who gets more prominence. I'm going to flip a coin and say Brian Cage gets the win, but if you tell me that Hechicero wins, it won't surprise me even the littlest bit. But I do think if Jay White and David Finlay go to some kind of double countout, double DQ, no contest, that Brian Cage and Hechicero is a prime candidate to have something similar happen on themselves and have both men eliminated from the tournament. So that is what we have announced for both Dynamite and Collision. We're obviously going to get some more stuff. If you'll notice, there is no women's segment or match on this card at all. There's no way that's going to continue to happen. We're likely going to further Willow and Mercedes' storyline. We're likely going to further the Divine Dominion and Brawling Birds. We're likely going to further the issues between Kyle Fletcher and Kazuchika Okada for the International Championship. There's a lot still that's going to happen. We're likely going to see more from the Young Bucks and Cope and Cage regarding the tag titles. So there's a bunch that has not been announced that I do expect to see on Dynamite, but we can only work with what we've got. That's what we've got right now announced. 4 matches for Dynamite, 3 for Collision, and 5 of those being Continental Cup matches. So that's everything we've got in store. Let me know in the comments what you're looking forward to the most. Thank you as always for checking out Duality of Wrestling. I cannot tell you enough how much I appreciate you guys giving us views, giving us subscribes, checking out the channel. Really, if you haven't noticed, it's really just me here putting a lot of this on, but I'm a wrestling connoisseur with over just about 30 years of wrestling fandom under my belt. I love talking wrestling. I love sharing this information with you all. I love being able to debate it with some of you guys, and I'm looking to have some of that happen here in the near future with some other people I know who are big into wrestling and can discuss it intelligently. So I'm looking forward to some of that back and forth here in the near future. But for right now, thank you as always for checking us out. Appreciate you one and all. I'm Christian for Duality Wrestling. See you later, guys.